Hi, and welcome to the Rare Business Podcast. My name is Adrian Swinsko, and I'm a consultant, advisor, researcher, and writer on all things related to customer service and customer experience. Through this podcast, I seek out and interview CEOs, entrepreneurs, business and tech leaders, and leading thinkers about what it takes to build organizations that produce better outcomes for both customers and employees in this fast-moving modern age that we live in. If this is your first time listening to one of these interviews, then welcome, and please do dive into the archives at adrianswinsco.com, as I've now completed over 250 of these interviews in the last few years. If this is not your first time listening, then thank you for returning, and I'll aim to do a good enough job to keep you coming back week after week. Anyway, that's enough from me right now. Let's get into the interview. So, welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today is Rachel Haworth, who is Customer Experience Director of Coventry Building Society. Hi Rachel, how are you doing?
Morning Adrian, I'm very good, thank you.
So Rachel, for the benefit of our listeners and readers, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. So I am Customer Experience Director here. I have worked with Coventry Building Society for over 13 years now, and I've been in financial services prior to that, but this organisation is one that I believe the values of this organisation really resonate with me, and that's why I've stayed here so long. I used to be product and marketing, responsible for all the product marketing and comms. But actually about 5 years ago, I was asked to set up the customer experience department. So I've been running the CX department here now and brought it from nothing to where it is today. And so it's been an exciting time, really trying to move the organisation forward in terms of its customer experience journeys.
Perfect. Now, it's important to note, I mean, for all the UK listeners, they'll be familiar with the Building Society. But if for anybody who's not in the UK, a building society is effectively like a bank, but it's sort of structured in a slightly different way. That's right?
So the big difference between a bank and a building society is that we are owned by our members, so we don't have any shareholders. Mm-hmm. And so actually it allows us to be able to make decisions that are in the long-term interests of both our current and future members,
right?
Without having that shareholder element to it. And it's a business model that I think helps us to make very value-based decisions in our membership's interests.
Yeah. So I just thought it's important to point that sort of distinction out. So there's slightly different drivers, which allows you a little bit kind of to view the world in a slightly different way, I guess. But
yes, but I think it's important to note that, you know, a mutual status, even though it does give us that element of priority is for our members. Mm-hmm. It also depends on strong leadership to ensure that the society is run in the proper way. So yeah. I don't think mutual status in its own right safeguards doing the right thing. Yeah, no, completely.
So let me get back on track now, because I've met you at a couple of conferences that we've both sort of been at or spoken at, and I am always continually, every time I've heard the story that you've told about Coventry Building Society, I'm a bit like, wow, that rocks, that's really ace. That's kind of why I've been hunting you down to say, please come on the podcast. Please come and tell us your story, because I think the story of what you've done and how Coventry Building Society has performed over the last, I don't know, decade or so is great. And so can you give us a bit of a snapshot of Coventry Building Society's kind of customer experience journey and what you've done and what you've achieved and things? Could sort of colour in some of the blanks, because just tell us your story, Rachel, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Over to you.
Okay. So I was actually asked by the previous chief executive to set up the department about 5 years ago now. Uh-huh. And so really, when we were talking about it, the vision was to be able to have this independence in a department that could really challenge any other area of the business, and to really push us from doing all the good things that we were doing to being great.
Right.
And so its purpose really was to take that holistic approach across the journey from a customer's perspective, and see what we could do. So as an example, I looked at initially the journey for opening a savings account, which obviously for us as a building society, mortgages and savings are our main products. And actually took a proposal to the board that showed that from a customer's perspective it just wasn't good enough, and encourage them to invest in that improvement. And actually, I think it's important for any customer experience department to be able to show the commercial benefit of what they're doing as well.
Yes.
And so one of the things we did early on was we showed that actually if we could improve the journey from a customer's perspective, it brings a significant amount of business benefits as well.
Right. And when you say business benefits, I mean, are you talking about the whole kind of piece in terms of increased sales, higher profitability, lower costs in terms of time and effort served? Is that the whole? Are you building a holistic business case to demonstrate that?
Absolutely, and I think each journey creates a very different business case. So, for example, when we looked at the savings journey, and it was specifically those people looking at it online, we found that there was days of delay in there that we were putting in the customer's way.
Right.
And actually, by getting rid of some of that, you reduce phone calls coming in, you reduce paper going back and forth.
Right.
You create more loyalty from the customer, which obviously brings you a long-term benefit. You take out cost out of the process. You encourage more conversion. So there's a whole host of business case elements there that you can bring.
Right.
But then you take a different journey. Say one of the other ones we looked at was bereavement.
Right.
And it's very difficult to make a business case around that. So our membership is a little bit older because we're a savings organisation predominantly. And so unfortunately we do have members come to us and inform us that, their partner has died. And we were putting a lot of barriers in their way as well.
Sure.
But I think if you can build a commercial business case for some of your journeys, then you can encourage your board to support you in the ones that actually you need to do just because it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a little few examples of what we've done as a department.
Yeah. And the other thing that, I think that's great. I mean, because I think that's one of the biggest kind of challenges, and will be a continuing challenge for people that are trying to improve customer experiences, is actually to be very clear what the business case is. But I think that one of the things that I think possibly helps you in that is the sort of, you talked a lot about Coventry Building Society, and you talked about the culture and the things that you've done that's different, and one of the things that really stood out for me in your story was the fact that you told the story that Coventry Building Society are you the only kind of financial service organisation in the UK that grew at double digits before the financial crisis, during the financial crisis, and since the financial crisis? And you've done that without actually having any sales targets?
Yeah, so we've had consistent double-digit profitable growth, and we don't have any sales targets, and we took out these sales targets out of our branch network, a good 5 or 6 years ago now.
Right.
And really that decision was taken by our head of branch network. And the reason we wanted to do that was to ensure the customer got the right outcome, even if that meant not taking an account out with us. If it wasn't the right thing for them to do, to take an account out with us, we didn't want them to take an account out.
Right.
And so actually, by having a sales target, you're putting pressure on your employees to meet that target, whereas actually what you should be doing is giving them the environment in which they can do the right thing for the member. And that's why we got rid of them. And from a business perspective, that was very very difficult initially for the branch managers. How are they going to, manage their teams?
Yes.
But actually, with lots of support from the head of branch network and his team, they were able to encourage and train and motivate those branch managers to be able to lead their teams on doing the right thing and getting the right outcome for customers instead of having these sales targets.
So can I clarify something? So when you say you don't have any sales targets, I mean, no, there is no obvious in your story, but will the branch themselves have targets or things that the goals that they want to achieve, but then there's no individual targets, or is it no targets at all across the board?
Not in terms of sales, no targets at all. And actually the main thing, and I would say we measure them on this rather than target them on it, is Net Promoter Score, so
right,
from a customer recommendation perspective.
Okay.
So we don't target them on that either, but we do measure it. They know what their score is. They see all the detailed comments and everything that come back from customers. And actually what that does is it drives a motivation for each of the branches to do as best as they possibly can from a customer's perspective. Because they see all of the feedback and all of the comments that we get back from customers about their branch.
Right. I mean, but then because that feels like, because then you say that, so this double-digit growth story has been going on, I guess longer than the CX department has been established. Yeah. So I guess it's like, it feels like that your role was to say, well, we've got the member at the heart of what we do. And we're doing kind of well, and it's almost it feels a bit like the CX department has been established almost to say, like, we need to push on further, we need to go further rather than actually kind of do this naturally. We need to kind of almost like turn ourselves into an elite athlete in this respect, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it was that journey from good to great.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely that, and recognizing that we don't always get it right.
Sure.
The savings example, the bereavement example, one of the things we found out from a bereavement perspective was if you had a mortgage and a savings with us, in the mortgage department, they would ask for the original death certificate, and in the savings department, they were happy with a copy.
Right.
So customers were going through two processes, which individually were absolutely fine, but if you were a customer going through both, didn't make any sense.
Sure.
And it's things like that the customer experience department can do that individual departments would never recognise because they're only looking at their own processes.
Mm-hmm.
And so really the department was there to say, okay, we all know that everybody in the organisation is trying to do the best they can do for the customer, but how do we actually make sure that that's happening consistently across the board, across the whole entire journey from end to end, not just in your little pocket?
Yes.
And that's where we've added value to the business.
Perfect. I mean, so again, another thing that I picked up from your story, which I thought was brilliant, is that you told a story about how your CEO attends every induction for new employees, and I was thinking, well, that's brilliant. I really like that, but I guess my question is that, can you give us a sort of an idea of the sort of quantum of effort that's going to require? Because if it's only like a few hundred employees, then it might only be a small effort and it becomes a big statement. But if it's like you're way bigger than that, so can you tell us almost how did that come about, and how much effort does that require from the CEO? Because it's not a usual tactic that we hear from CEOs of large organisations. Okay,
it is quite a lot of effort, actually. I think for a CEO to take time out of his diary. So we have an induction of new employees at least every fortnight.
Right.
And so every fortnight, Mark will take out at least an hour, if not an hour and a half of his time to see them very early on their first day.
Uh-huh.
And so actually one of the first impressions they get from the society is the CEO standing up in front of them. And he doesn't talk about, corporate strategy or, growth or anything like that. He will cover those as things that, this is our ambition, this is what we want to do. But the main part of what he talks about is the values of the organisation.
Right.
And he talks about the culture of the organisation, and he shows some of the successes we've had in things like staff engagement, NPS scores, low volumes of complaints, and he shows all of that in combination with growth and what we do on savings and mortgages.
Yeah.
So for me, the important part of all of that is actually new people coming along and finding the chief exec is prioritising coming to see them and talking to them about the values of the organisation. And I think that just gives such an amazing first impression that they know that that's what's important right from the top.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I just looked it up actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Coventry Building Society has in excess of about 2,300 employees. Is that right?
Yeah, we're about 2,500 now. Yeah.
Yeah, which is so that means that it's you're a significant an organisation that's a large organisation. You have number of thousands of employees, and so it's a significant effort. I guess my next question would be, like, how did that actually come about? I mean, was it something that Gary initiated? Was it something that he inherited from a predecessor, or how did it come about?
It's Mark that's our CEO.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I think when we looked at induction, we wanted to make sure that we told the kind of cultural history of the organisation and kind of bring the values to life.
Right.
And Mark was very, very keen to do that himself. Mm. And so, he's been very a major part in instigating that.
Yes. And
being, involved in the HR team, looking at, what should we do at induction. And he wanted to be a part of it. So I think that tells an awful lot about the culture of an organisation in its own right, really.
Sure.
And it shows that culture comes from the top.
Yes.
And so we wanted to ensure that actually induction wasn't just all of the practical things you needed to know, but you actually got a feel of what this place means and how to make decisions here, because how you make decisions here might be quite different to how you've made decisions in whatever your previous employer was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I just like the story. I mean, it reminds me of a story. You say absolutely rightly that I think the tone of culture gets set at the very top, and it reminds me of a story which I keep telling to people all the time, and I'll keep telling them until they tell me to stop when they're bored of it. But there's a story about a gentleman called Sheldon Yellen, who is the CEO of they're a disaster renovation construction company. They operate around the world, but they're also based in the States, largely in the States. They have about 7,500 employees. So, when a hurricane or a flood hits or whatever, and it sort of does a lot of damage to a town, they're the ones that go in and rebuild the communities and houses and stuff. And so they have, as I say, 7,500 employees. Now, Sheldon writes a handwritten birthday card to every employee every year. And if you think about that in terms of a numbers perspective, that's a lot of birthday cards.
Yeah.
And I actually heard about this and wrote a story about it. And it was also kind of around his 60th birthday, because on his 60th birthday, he got a handwritten birthday card from every employee in the organisation. And I just thought it was amazing. So his biggest problem is, where am I going to put 7,500 birthday cards?
And it does. It comes from the top, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
If you have that leadership team that's encouraging members of staff to think about each other as people and work together collaboratively, then I think I think you have to get that staff engagement if you're going to do the right thing for your customers as well.
Absolutely.
I think it really does start from there.
Perfect. So, we know that many organisations out there are trying to achieve their own level of kind of greatness. You talked about going from good to great sort of thing when it comes to CX, but also many of them are not failing, or are rather failing to achieve, the heights that they want. But you seem to have built your success and this momentum on some really simple sort of pillars and principles to make sure that the whole organisation sort of works well and is aligned and is all pointing in the right direction. I mean, can you tell me about? I mean, do you have organising principles for your approach, and if so, can you tell us a little bit about what they are? Because it feels like it all feels a little very. It's not complicated. It's really simple, and if you keep it simple and have everybody kind of doing the right thing, pointing in the in the same direction, but operating under almost like a small set of very simple principles, then you see that seems to kind of go a long way to helping you get things right. Is that right? Is that accurate?
I totally agree. And actually, the interesting thing is that I haven't set any separate customer experience vision or goals.
Right.
I have what I wanted to do straight away was keep it completely aligned with the strategic vision and goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're in a business that needs to have a separate customer experience vision, there's something wrong.
Right.
Because it has to be the vision. And so we have a mission statement, which is putting members first.
Mm-hmm.
Which a lot of organisations have something similar.
Yes.
I think the difference here is we actually walk the talk. We don't just say it.
Right.
And we do have a set of very clear values.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a set of very clear kind of business principles as well behind those.
Yes.
But they are the business values and the business principles. They are not customer experience ones.
Right.
And so I think I've spoken to a lot of other organisations around this, and they said, what's your customer experience vision? What are your goals? And I say we don't have one. It's the same as the corporate one, and I think that is essential if you're going to make a real impression in an organisation.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes complete sense. So, forgive me, I'm sort of like I was just thinking about my kind of questions and kind of what next, because you just made me think about the collapsing of business vision, strategy, and customer experience sort of vision and strategy is one and the same thing, and I think it's absolutely kind of right. Would your advice kind of then, if somebody was listening into this and thinking about that, then what would your advice kind of be to them, given the experience that you've had so far with the Coventry Building Society and the success that you've had? I mean, is it the age-old wisdom, which is keep it simple, stupid?
I think it is keep it simple, and actually keeping things simple is one of our principles.
There you go.
Actually, one of our principles is to keep things simple and be easy to use. That's another one of our principles as well. So actually, I think one of my elements would be prove that actually doing the right thing for the customer gives you a commercial benefit.
Right.
I think if you can do that, then actually it doesn't matter which board member you're talking to, mm-hmm. you will get their ear, because actually, whatever their personal driver is, whatever they feel is the most important measure on your corporate scorecard, if you can actually prove that, doing amazing customer experiences and encouraging loyalty in your customer base will drive a more profitable business or a more growing business or a lower cost business, whatever your business driver is, mm-hmm. if you can prove the link there, then you will get the support you need to do the investment that you need.
Right.
And I think that would be my key piece of advice for anybody, really, because I recognise that Coventry Building Society, in its mutual status and its fantastic values, is probably a bit of an easier journey to do that than many others that may be listening to this.
Sure.
But I think even in those other businesses, you can still do that. You can still have that commercial proof that doing the right thing for the customer will bring you business success.
Well, absolutely. I think the point you make is an important one across, because you're saying, well, whilst we might not be necessarily working for our shareholders, we're working for our kind of members, and there's a distinction kind of there. But the fact that you're doing things you're doing the majority of things that have a commercial kind of benefit, which then allow you, I guess, some credit to do some things where the commercial benefit's not necessarily clear, but it feels like it's the right thing to do. And I guess you've got to get that balance kind of right in many ways. You've got to almost be commercially and organizationally smart in terms of kind of what you do and what you lead with, and how you balance those kind of things off. But you mentioned about these principles, so they keep it simple and they're easy. I mean, how many of you those principles do you have?
Gosh, you want me to?
Oh no!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh crumbs! You've got a lot of them.
10 principles, but they're very, very simple. There's things like we will value and actively support our people.
Right.
So we've basically got one in there around our some of our business goals around growth.
Right.
We've got an awful lot around how do we deal with our customers, those simple ones, those easy ones, be safe and secure, those kind of things. But then we've also got things around our staff and also the communities that we work in as well. Mm-hmm. We want to provide a kind of a social value as well as, the savings and mortgages that we offer. And so the principles kind of cover all of the areas of our business, really, but they are very, very straightforward, very transparent, and actually just allow us to guide people when they come to do their decision making.
Sure. That's perfect. So I bet, Rachel, because we know that a lot of what makes this type of making an organisation kind of great is down to the people and what people kind of do when presented with either challenges or opportunities. And I'm pretty sure that you've got a couple of stories that kind of illustrate kind of Coventry Building Society and your people kind of going sort of above and beyond, or actually just that just kind of illustrate this is what we do and this is how we roll, as it were. So, do you have a couple of stories that you can share with us that would bring the whole experience thing to life in terms or to illustrate kind of what good looks like?
Yeah, I think I'll give you two actually, and one of them I've already mentioned, but one of them actually isn't a customer experience one, and I'm going to use this because I think it shows more the values of the organisation and how that decision making happens here. And it was actually some time ago now. It was during the credit crisis, and a number of financial organisations, well, the vast majority of financial organisations were moving their interest rates quite a lot, actually, to the detriment of customers, to safeguard their own commercial standing, obviously.
Sure.
And we had an option to follow the market, and we could have done so very, very easily. And we actually took a decision, myself and the chief exec at the time, to not follow the market and actually to pay our members better rates than, we could have got away with, if you like.
Right.
And kind of one of the things that we say is we will always pay the best rates that we can afford to pay. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just showing you the mentality of the organisation, because we could have made significant millions of pounds worth more profit in a year if we'd have made different decisions. And, that was very clear to me in that credit crisis period where actually, we chose to do the right thing for our members. And that's continued, those decisions still happen today when, we're looking at our interest rates. So even though it's not a customer experience example, I wanted to use that as kind of an example of the culture of the organisation.
Absolutely.
And then I think the other example, I'd go back to that bereavement example where I had no business case to do that.
Sure.
And it was purely because I said to the executive team, look, we've done the savings journey, we've made really great commercial success out of that. And I kind of said, I'm kind of asking for your endorsement to go and do something a little bit different. And they were supportive of that because both of the commercial success of looking at the savings journey, but because of the culture of the organisation.
Sure.
But I think the point is that actually when we did that and we improved the bereavement journey for our members, we did actually find that there was a commercial benefit out of it, because we found more people were bringing the estate to us in probate after the event, because of the service that we'd offered them.
Yeah.
Because actually that's one of those journeys that you do with multiple organisations at exactly the same time.
Yes.
And you're comparing the same task that you've got to do with multiple organisations. And if you do it well, customers will be loyal to you. And so, I'd end with that one, because I think it's a really good point. And actually, even if you haven't got a business case, I think sometimes there is a real commercial value in just doing the right thing.
I would add to that, because I remember speaking to a life insurer about something similar, and one of the knotty problems that they continually face is this issue around power of attorney and how it complicates things. With it complicates. It's just complicated when somebody passes away, and they many people assume that they have power of attorney in place, but then many people kind of don't. And then it just gets complicated, and it's ugly for everybody. It's just hard work. It's almost the business of death and dealing with it. And it's hard for the family. It's hard for employees. And I think the thing that and it's hard to see the commercial benefit. And the thing I was talking to the life insurer about is that this is hard. This is kind of persistent, and it's a perennial sort of like thing. Maybe if you think from the commerciality perspective of it, it's almost like, can you think about it from the perspective of what is the impact it has on your employees, and what is the impact it has on morale and turnover and so on and so forth? Because some people just don't like it, and it does have a negative impact. And because we sort of flipped it around and they looked at it a slightly different way, it got to they were able to reframe it, as it were, the discussion.
Yeah.
And that it helped them kind of think about, okay, then that makes sense for us to kind of move forward on this. But then they got all the benefits that you were talking about as well, because they were just a bit like, well, you've just made a bad situation feel a little bit better, and we are most grateful for that. And that sort of idea just sticks for a long time. It's just making things easier for people in tough times. So I completely get what you're talking about.
And on that, actually, when we looked at the bereavement journey, one of the things we discovered were a lot of the issues and kind of customer concerns were coming from the fact that they had a power of attorney,
right,
and didn't understand that ceases as soon as the person dies. And actually, so one of the things that we did improve out of that work was actually going back to the power of attorney journey and making sure that actually if we had somebody coming to us with a power of attorney, we were clearer when we spoke to them about what their rights were when the account was open, but also what their rights stopped, how their rights stopped when unfortunately that person passed away.
Right.
And actually by doing that and looking back at a completely different journey, we helped the bereavement journey, when sadly those people came to that point. And I think that's, again, a really good example of customer experience is looking across that whole experience and being able to influence a completely different journey and keep completely different process to help the customer with something else.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it is you've got to get stuck into this and almost like follow it where it kind of goes. So it's, and be very systematic and look at things kind of holistically, because it's fascinating how everything becomes increasingly connected. Not just in an organisation, but also in people's kind of lives. So, Rachel, if I was to say to you, kind of like boil it down and say you've had a huge amount of great success. I think the work that you're doing is pretty amazing. You've put in the hard yards. You've probably got some kind of bumps and bruises to show for it along the way. But if there's somebody an executive or a leader that's listened to this and they're saying, yeah, we want to kind of kickstart us, or we want to try and do some of the similar sort of things that you're doing in your organisation. I mean, where would you recommend they start first? I mean, what's the first thing you should do? Do this. This will set you on the right path. What would you say to them?
I would say you've got to win the hearts and minds of your board.
Right. Really.
And with any board, I think you've got to start with the mind. You've got to start with the tangible value that you can offer. Mm-hmm. So I would really do that piece around, finding the commercial benefit out of whatever it is that you feel is the biggest problem that you need to tackle.
Sure.
I would say don't try and spread yourself too thin. A lot of the textbooks say map every journey out first, and I'd pick one that you think you can make a difference on.
Sure.
And make a real difference and prove your case.
Yes.
And then I think it is about winning the hearts of the board as well. Find something that maybe a board member feels should be improved themselves. And make sure that you've got that advocate there. And then I think if you've got that, you've got the support then that you need, and then you can broaden out, you can do more journeys, etc. So my advice again would be keep it simple, take one, make it commercially tangible value that relates to something that your board will see as tangible value, and then actually spread out from there.
Perfect. So Rachel, I mean, I think we've covered quite a lot, and thank you for that. I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to add that you believe that we've missed out?
I'd just say that I think we have got a fantastic, successful company here, but I don't think you can ever be complacent.
No.
And we don't get everything right, and there is always improvement that can be made. And so, just setting targets high and keeping going for those, because customer expectations are constantly changing.
Yeah.
And what you thought was a good experience last year might not be considered a good experience this year. And so that would be something that I would add is actually, hopefully we are a good case study, but we recognise you've just got to keep pushing.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, the thing that I've been noticing is that it's almost that there is this, I don't know, there's a characteristic around many leading organisations that are leading, particularly in the experience space, and it feels like they are both restless and relentless when it comes to improvement. And I think that you epitomise that, and I think you're to be congratulated for it, and it's hard to do because people can almost like going, oh, it's hard work, and then they get to a level that they're happy with, and then they go, relax and breathe, and they're like going, people are like going, no, we've got ants in our pants, we have to keep going, sort of thing. And it's that restlessness and the discipline and the commitment to being relentless improvement, because that you can't sit still. And I think there's not many people that have that, not many organisations that have that, and you obviously do, and you're to be congratulated for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I will take that.
So, Rachel, thank you very much. I mean, this has been, for sharing your story, for your time, and throwing a light on not just at conferences, but also kind of here on the podcast on Coventry Building Society and what you're doing and how you're doing it. I mean, I think that's been great. So, thank you once again for sharing your time and your story with us today.
You're very welcome, Adrian.
Well, that's it for another interview. I really hope you enjoyed it. Now, every time I complete one of these interviews, I learn something new, and I try and incorporate that new learning into my writing, my speaking, my workshops, and the consulting that I do for my clients. If you're interested, you can find out more about how I work with clients over at adrianswinscoe.com. But one final thing before I go, please consider heading over to iTunes or whichever podcast platform you choose to use, and do leave a review. Every little helps, as they say. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for listening, and do listen in again. All the very best.